You don't know this, but while the camera was off, Dan Morgenstern and I were starting a conversation about Eddie Condon, who is a mutual hero. Who, if I had my way, he would be on Mount Rushmore. Get rid of those other guys. You were going to say the last time you saw Eddie.
Well, you had mentioned Red Balaban's sessions at
Yes.
what used to be Nick's and then became Father's Mustache and whatever. Red Carter, I think, was the last one.
No, I have to stop you because this is the perversity I loved most in this life. There was a sign in the back of the bandstand that said, "Your father's mustache, where the time of your life is right under your nose." A long silence follows.
Well, Red, who is no longer with us, Red was, he put together some pretty good bands, Balaban and Cats, and
Yeah.
he was a, bass player who also doubled on guitar, and he also made the mistake of singing. And sorry, the last time I saw Eddie, who I was enormously fond of, Eddie was just a wonderful, wonderful man in so many ways. And a great musician. People don't understand how good he really was. Joe Bushkin, in an interview with Whitney Balliet, talks about the first recording of Bunny Berrigan's I Can't Get Started, not with the big band, but the first one with the small group, which Eddie is on. And he said Eddie was really responsible for the arrangement. He did all this thing with the transitions and all that. He was, so he was much more than just somebody, although he was great on the guitar too. So anyway, Eddie was, lived nearby Washington Square. So he came in the afternoon, and I was sitting with him, and Big Chief Moore was in the band, and on a break he came over to the table and he said, "Eddie, man," he said, "I haven't seen you in so long. You look wonderful. How do you do it?" So Eddie looked up at him and he said, "Total neglect, total neglect." So then, after when the whole thing was, and also Eddie made a comment when Red was singing, after he got through with the song, he said, "That was about as melodious as a train wreck." But they were good friends, and when the whole thing was over, Red had the car parked outside, so the three of us went out, and Red always, Eddie too, I remember when Eddie had the club, they always had some really good smoke, that was good. So the three of us sat in the car and got out, and that was like the last time I saw Eddie. Was going to say goodbye after that. When he had been, he had this operation, and everybody thought he was going to cut out, which he didn't. He stayed with us for quite a while after that. But that's when I did an interview with him for Downbeat, which actually became a cover story, and that was great, wonderful interview. But it was just the two of us. The two of us and a bottle of vodka. I was worried because Eddie was still recuperating. He came to the door in a bathrobe, and he excused himself at one point. He said he had to give himself a vitamin shot that the doctor had ordered him to do. But he took a quart of vodka out of the refrigerator and put it on the table where we sat down, and the two water glasses, and he poured himself one and he poured me one. He finished it. I never finished my water glass, but he went through a couple of them. But it never showed. And it was one of the best interviews I think I ever did. And I couldn't even put everything that we talked about in there. I loved his name for Louis. He called Louis Mr. Strong.
Yes. And he adored Lewis.
For sure. And Lips too. Lips was a frequent. They had their jam sessions at Condon Tuesday night, not Mondays, but Tuesdays. Lips was there quite a few times. Eddie he was remarkable. I always, in many ways, he reminded me of my favorite movie actor is James Cagney. I love Jimmy Cagney, and they had the same kind of, body English or body Irish.
And to be small and to show what you were doing like this. When you listen to the town hall concerts and you don't see him, you can tell in some way what he's doing. And I don't know if it exists, but if you have a concert or a record where Eddie's in the band and the same musicians without Eddie, you can really feel the difference.
He was a master of tempos, and in these jam sessions, which you may think, superficially that they were kind of, off the cuff, but he knew exactly what order to put the solos in, and then you have those things, little ensembles at the end. It was all very well worked out, and we're fortunate to have some record of talk before recordings, where they, talk about routining the tunes and so on. But he knew everything. He knew exactly what was right with multiple strain traditional jazz pieces like Wolverine Blues and so on. Knew the right keys, the right tempos. He was much more than just a guy who played rhythm guitar.
His bands always sounded good, and it didn't really matter always what people you had in the front line, but if he was in there, there was a cohesiveness.
Yeah. And that guitar of his, when you can actually hear it well.
It's a beautiful sound.
Marty Gross speaks very highly of Eddie as a guitarist.
Yeah. Well, you hear him. You hear him on the Commodores. You hear him on the 50s recordings he did in Liederkranz Hall, Blessings to George Avakian. They're wonderful music.
And on those early ones, the 1933 sessions with Big Sid Catlett on drums, where he's playing something, Marty told me that instrument does not sound like a normal guitar. Marty, who knows everything about the history of guitars in jazz, and banjo, it's something that was called a banjo lute, and he showed me a photo of it in a manufacturer's catalog thing, so it's not a regular guitar, but you can hear him on the EO, and home cooking. That's a great session. I love it. Tennessee Twilight with Alex Hill on piano. And he was also the guy, Eddie was the guy who really did the first thing and really integrated recording sessions.
Yeah. Well, you get, what is it? Can you get Fatswaller to the studio for X dollars, I forget, and Eddie either says or thinks, for X dollars I can get you Herbert Hoover in a soft collar. So, it's pretty, he was magnificent. Hold on.